Hello, I'm Krzysztof and you're watching TVP World Talks, where every word matters. Now, for quite a while now, Poland has been facing a crisis on its border with Belarus, with refugees, migrants being essentially sent to the border by the regime of Alexander Lukashenko. Now, this obviously has caused many concerns, including related to human rights, but also to the degree to which force can be used to repel these attacks. Now, the government has introduced a new piece of legislation intended to make it easier for troops and police officers and border guards at the border to defend it. However, there have been a few controversies and they are still unresolved. Now, we're going to talk about this and more with our guest today, Krzysztof Jaworski, Deputy Director at the Institute for Security and International Development. Hello and welcome to TVP World.
Hello, nice to be here with you.
So would you say that these reservations that some rights groups have are justified? Obviously, it probably would be an expedient for every single serviceman at the border to be carrying a criminal code and whenever there is an attack saying, wait, I actually need to check whether the use of force here is justified under the necessary provisions. Okay, it is justified, so let me do something about it. On the other hand, however, it is a question of the possible use of lethal force against civilians. So where do we draw a line here?
Yes, it is really hard to draw a precise line between these cases and where we are now. Now we are waiting for Polish lower house of parliament commissions. Two commissions are having a joint meeting today. It's National Defense Committee and Justice and Human Rights Committee, and they will prepare a report for Sejm, and then there will be voting, which will decide whether Sejm will accept or decline higher house of Polish Parliament amendments to this draft. However, these amendments doesn't change crucial, fundamental point, which is this controversy about this amendment about rules of using lethal force. So probably soon we will have this draft voted, because there were overwhelming majority of votes that accepted this amendment. So soon it will be real impact on our reality, real impact on what is going on the border, and why this draft was projected in this way is because there were a lot of cases where soldiers and officers of border guards were attacked during their service at the border, and there were as well a lot of cases when they used, for example, their weapons, like shooting in the air to deter people who were attacking them, and it was. It culminated with this tragic killing of a Polish soldier on the Polish-Belarusian border. So there were like a great public opinion response demanding to do something about it. And public opinion was as well really angry, because there were cases where military police were acting against soldiers after they used these weapons in the situation where their life were endangered. They were working about great stress. So there were this demand to make these rules of engagement, these rules of using lethal force more elastic, and not to punish soldiers for their service, for their service at the border and protecting border.
So there was like this perception, right? These people are doing their jobs, let them. And let's not actually make it even more difficult for them in order to essentially make sure that they can actually achieve what they set out to achieve, which is protecting the integrity of the border. However, I mean, the difficult thing here is that the rift isn't running through the party lines as usual. It's not like the government versus the opposition. In fact, the left, which forms a part of the government, says our amendments were ignored. We wanted more transparency, we wanted disciplinary proceedings. In short, we wanted to make sure that human rights are protected. That's what they are saying. And also there are rights groups, including groups of legal professionals and experts in the field of human rights. And they say also, this amendment, it may have its justification given what's going on at the border, but it might be going too far. Do you think this is really the case? Should these amendments have been taken into account?
So yes, that's right. Because if there is so big polarization on this matter, that if someone is making some points, some amendments, for example, like it was made by Helsinki Foundation for Human Rights, and their statement was that this amendments goes too far. These amendments by them were refused at all. There weren't like a place, like a space for further discussion. So yes, I think that working under the pressure of time, under the pressure of public opinion demand is risky, and it makes this risk that these amendments will go too far. However, as we stated in the previous question, there is like a big demand from the public opinion. It's like a big emotion by politicians. It is not by opposition or government lines, but it's together. There is only politicians from the left party and some of the ruling party, just several, who opposed this amendment. So yes, I think it is risky that amendment which is proceeded fast and with well, great polarization without further discussion is something that can go too far. And
what's the biggest problem here, really? Because we're not talking about the use of force against enemy personnel. We're not talking about possible incursions by any sort of, any sort of members of an enemy armed force, right? It is all about possibly using force against civilians. If these civilians seem to be acting violently, they're crossing the border, being pushed from Belarus by Belarusian services. So essentially, the argument seems to go like, these are desperate people. Sometimes they might be acting in such a way as to provoke a response. But should we not have a way of verifying whether this response was justified, whether it did not go too far? It is understandable because we're talking, again, about civilians, and we're also talking about specific situation. It's not just about the use of force as it was provided for before, because there were limitations in that anyway. We're talking about the use of force that would have normally been excessive under existing legislation, but in order to allow the troops at the border to do their job, we're saying we're not going to prosecute them for this anyway if these acts were committed in order to protect the border. Right, so we're going quite far there. I mean, it's on one hand understandable. On the other hand, these questions are still out there, right?
Yes, I agree, and I generally support these amendments because it is crucial for us to maintain our security and to stop this border security crisis. At the same time, I think that it is the right way to further discuss this, and even if this law will be passed and then signed by President, to probably after some additional discussion, after some additional time, to make further amendments to make it the most precise as it is possible to to avoid situations where this use of lethal force will be excessive. However, I think that it is the right thing that now soldiers and border guardians who are risking their lives and they are protecting border for our security, that they will have tools in their hands to protect their lives at the same time with protecting the border. So it's one thing, and I think that even passing this law shouldn't close the further discussion. So it's one thing. The other thing you mentioned is that it's not like these are only civilians who are desperate, who are poor. It's at the same time well-organized operation. It's hybrid warfare, which is maintained by Belarusian and Russian services against Poland, against European Union, against NATO.
That's a very important point.
Really important.
Yes,
I didn't
yes, I said that's a very important point. That this has been organized by these regimes, right? So, isn't it the case though that essentially it could go two different ways, right? We could have a soldier detecting an attempt, say, to smuggle weapons, or a group of saboteurs trying to make their way across the border. These people are shot, or they are wounded at the border, and everyone is satisfied because an attempt to conduct a violent terrorist attack has been foiled. But heaven forbid someone makes a mistake. Say there is a woman with children trying to cross the border. She waves an object which someone mistakes for a weapon. Shots are fired. And again, there is a risk that innocent lives could be lost. And then rights groups are going to cry about, they are going to vociferously accuse, the border services of exceeding their mandate, right? Of using excessive force. And no one will be prosecuted for this. Are there any provisions within, for example, the European Union regulations which provide a suggestion as to where to where to draw the line here?
It's really hard to exercise this law in the real situations, because it's for the soldiers, for these border guardians, being under pressure of risk of their own lives, after being under pressure of time to make quick decisions. So it is really risky that there will be incidents. However, I think that we should have in mind that on the other hand, there's Russian and Belarusian services which are organizing this hybrid warfare. There's people who are taking part in it and being aggressive against our soldiers, our border guardians. They don't have this self-constraints. They already caused great tragedy. They already killed a Polish soldier. So I think that even if we, in our own interest and to protect our own values, to protect human rights, should work on designing these legal amendments in the best possible way. And I think that because of the pressure of time, this current amendment can be further amended and further being made better. I think that at the same time we should have in mind that the most important thing is to at last protect this border, protect the life of our soldiers. And it's not only this amendment. There is a lot of other means that are taken to make better protection of border. It's, for example, buffer zone, which is proving its effectiveness. Last numbers given us by Polish border guardians is that in July, when this buffer zone was already working, there were only about 1,000 attempts to cross border. While
so the number of incursions
months
is going down. Unfortunately, we have to park our conversation here, but this is a very important point. We're facing regimes that put no value on human life, essentially, and they're counting on us, essentially, not being able to decide what measures to take, because we are democracies. They are not. Krzysztof Jaworski was our guest today here on TVP World. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
And I'm Jan Śrowiński. You're watching TVP World. Please do stay with us.